Ed Olczyk had a long and distinguished career as a hockey player, one of the greatest American-born hockey players of all time. Guy came from Chicago, and he's a guy with a strong emotional attachment to Canada, especially for an American. He loves the horses, he loves the races, he likes to gamble, and he's become one of the best broadcasters in the game, working for the Blackhawks and working in the national broadcast for NBC. Main thing about Ed is, though, he's a smart, thoughtful guy. He's a nice guy. You know, everybody loves Ed Olczyk in hockey, and so when people heard that he was sick a couple of years ago, the sport rallied around him in a way that was really heartening for him, I think, and everybody's pretty thrilled that Ed's doing well. So we're here in Las Vegas, a non-traditional hockey market, the kind of place back when Ed Olczyk started playing hockey that never would have thought there would ever be an NHL team here, but a place that in a lot of ways is actually close to Ed Olczyk's heart. So an appropriate spot to sit down and have a conversation.
Cancer is always going to be a part of Eddie Olczyk's life, and I'm okay with that.
When you think of all that time, Ed, and think of this city and think of the sport you're in, can you believe what's happened here? Would you have ever, if I'd said you 20 years ago, 25 years ago, there's going to be an NHL team in Vegas and it's going to go off like a rocket.
Right.
Would you believe it?
I don't think I would have been all in, but I think I might have been half in because of the success that the minor league team and the support that the minor league team had, the different variations, the different leagues that they had played in. Because there's so many people that live here in Vegas that aren't from Vegas and do come from hockey markets. I always wondered what it would be like to have a hockey team here, an NHL team here, and I mean, I couldn't be so more proud of our game to be the first team to come here, because obviously the Raiders coming soon, and there's going to be an NBA team here, and there's no doubt there's going to be a baseball team here. So to be the first professional sports team to come to Vegas, and I think, Stephen, we're over that. I don't know what it is, the mindset, the worriedness of gambling and sports, because it's everywhere now. It doesn't matter what state you're in for the most part. And I know, they've had the online betting in Canada for a long time, the lottery. So how successful they've been? Maybe a little surprised, but because we all know it's the greatest game in the world. And when you come to a city that has entertainment, there's no better entertainment.
It's interesting you mentioned the gambling thing, because one of the reasons we're out here is to talk about that. That's such a shift.
Sure.
And all the leagues getting in on it. Right. It's going to be legalized federally in the United States and Canada eventually. Right. That's a big, another, again, when I think of the biggest changes I've seen in the last 25 or 30 years, right, I think that's one of the biggest ones. It was verboten, right? You couldn't even talk about it.
Right. And
now everybody's embracing it.
Yeah. Well, I've always been a big proponent, and I'm a big horse racing guy, as you know, but I've always been a big proponent is that I don't think that we did enough of communicating and talking about the gambling aspect into our game to try to draw in newer fans, or to draw fans in for different reasons besides just wanting to cheer for the Jets or the Maple Leafs or the Blackhawks, 3 of the 6 teams that I played for. But I think now you have to embrace it. I'm a believer is that if you would eliminate gambling from football in the National Football League, it would not be as popular as it is today. There is no doubt in my mind. So why not try to join in and grab, in my opinion, try to grab as much of that fan base as you can. So it's uncharted territories, but look, whether it's references by broadcasters like myself in a game when that, that empty net goal is going to make some people happy, to reference that type of stuff, I think, I think we would be ignorant and arrogant not to talk about it and to run from it. Because it's right there. Look, it's going to be a big revenue generator for sure. Whether it's sponsorships or teams actually getting mirrored up with teams in casinos and in sports books that do that for a living.
So you're okay with it coming out of the shadows?
Oh, I am very much. Because like I said, it's always easy to say after the fact. But I have said privately for the last 10 years is that I think that as a league, we needed to explore this avenue of it, just because I think there was just an untapped fan base because that's the way. Look at the society we live in. We're a fast food society. We see it, we want to buy it, we want to go there, we want to do it. But it's here. I think we have to embrace this. And now look, I mean, will there come a point where in a pregame show you're sitting there talking about the line, or you're talking about the latest injury that has happened to somebody, or somebody comes up lame for the game, how the line has changed and stuff? I mean, you look at it on Saturdays and Sundays in college football, basketball, and then pro football on most Sundays. I mean, it's right there in front of you, so it's hard to run from it.
Ed, when you kind of think of the state of the sport in your country as an American, like we spent another subject for the last 20, 25 years, wither the NHL, wither hockey in the United States,
right.
Non-traditional markets, the echo of the Gretzky trade, and how those markets were, whether they could work, whether you could put hockey on in a place like this. Obviously, we know you can now, but where do you think the game is right now compared to where it was when the Arizona situation was a story every week, or when other teams were fragile?
Yeah. Well, I would say it is a look at the players that are coming into the NHL now. You got some premier players that have come from non-traditional hockey markets in the U.S., and obviously you got to start with Auston Matthews, coming from Arizona and the Scottsdale area. I mean, look at Jason Zucker, right? I mean, he was born and bred here, played his minor hockey here, and eventually left. I mean, so you have players coming from California, players coming from Florida, Texas. So I think with the expansion and player in the league going to those certain markets, Stephen, it's great to see, and I think it's good for the game and hopefully for the longevity of the game.
Okay, and you talked about players coming from non-traditional places and where players are coming from now. And look, this is not a direct link, but there's been an interesting conversation going on right now about inclusivity in hockey, or exclusivity in hockey, right? And some of it's been around this whole coaching issue that we've been talking about a whole lot lately, and about who's welcome and who's not, who feels included in hockey and who doesn't.
This morning I received a letter of resignation from Bill Peters, which I accepted. Effective immediately, Bill Peters is no longer a member of the Calgary Flames organization.
You played under a whole bunch of different kinds of coaches, right? A lot of old school guys. You coached. You saw Joel Quenneville up close as well as a broadcaster. What do you think when you hear these stories about? And again, I know there's a range of stuff. The Bill Peters thing is one thing. The other stuff is another thing. Right. But when you hear these stories about, kind of coaches breaking the code of trust with their players, how do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, I think there's a lot there, but I think first off, it's I think that's just finally us as a hockey society realizing that society has always been a part of the game and has creeped in, and now it's just become much more public, and people seem to have a little bit more courage now than maybe back in my day or in my era, when I had a coach put a knee in my back or abuse me verbally, or had one coach say publicly that Eddie Olczyk will have a good hockey career if he doesn't eat his way out of the NHL. Well, obviously he was making reference to my weight. If you would do that now, if that was me that would say that about a player or somebody in the league, I would be reprimanded immediately, and there's probably a pretty good chance that people would demand me to be taken off the air. So we're in a much different society now. There's a line, certain things totally unacceptable, but it's just a much different society we live in now, and you're right, I played in it. I lived some tough situations. I think I became a better person and a better hockey man for it. And I like to think that for my short time in Pittsburgh when I was coaching, is that I was able to deal with really good players and role players and treat them the way that they wanted to be treated. There is ways to motivate, but I think the days of getting in somebody's grill, grabbing a face mask, grabbing a chin strap, those days are done. it's never too late. But if somebody feels like it prevents them or prevented them from being in a comfortable work environment, then they have every right to speak up and say what they feel. Like I said, for me, I mean, it happened. When you're a young guy, you don't know any better, and you keep your mouth shut and you just keep playing and think, okay, well, this is the way it's supposed to be. And I mean, were there times when I went home when I was verbally abused or embarrassed? Yeah, but I just, okay, I'm not going to let the coach know that it bothered me in front of him, but maybe I had a quiet time with my wife, and so. But I just think that we as a game, and we as hockey people have to do obviously a much better job of, if we see something, to say something, and it may not be under our umbrella, but if you see somebody that is going through a tough time, then you have to speak up for that person. And but it's way different now. There's no doubt about it than it was in my era.
We had some great discussion with Gary and Bill. They couldn't have been kinder and receptive to the message that we're trying to bring. And I think there's just some big change coming, and it's long overdue. And I'm excited to see it come to fruition.
It's a tricky conversation, though, isn't it? Because so many of the hockey values are about toughing it out, right? And what happens in a room stays in a room, and tough love. And
I think that one there. I think that one with I mean, we're in Vegas, right? What happens here stays here.
Yeah.
But it's always been that way in hockey, right? But those days are done now. I mean, I really do. Those days are nothing is secret anymore. I mean, really, it really isn't. So I like to think that most of us know right from wrong. Is that if I would see, and I've seen it in the day, and again, I go back to my playing days when it became personal on a particular player or players, that's where you hope your leadership steps up and corrects it quickly, because nobody should have to feel afraid or worried about doing what they love to do, assuming that they love playing hockey or being involved in our game. So this is uncharted territory, and the only way that we can figure this thing out, it's going to take a while, but is to continue to communicate and ask questions and encourage people to continue to communicate with people around them if they feel uncomfortable.
Okay, I'm not going to just stay on that road the whole time here, but I was really interested what you have to say about that, and that's a really thoughtful answer.
I was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer back in August, and I'm proud to say that 8 days ago I had my final scan, and I'm cancer-free.
So how's your health?
Yeah, feel good. I just had my 3-month checkup last week, and I go back every 3 months for 2 years, and I'll have my big 2-year scan coming up in March. Always apprehensive, always nervous about going back, because cancer is always going to be a part of Eddie Olczyk's life, and I'm okay with that. And I think my purpose in life now is to help share my story and help inspire or bring hope to somebody, or to help get them through the day.
I talk to friends, and they always say there's who've had the diagnosis, and they say there's a before and an after, and you are somebody who has had cancer after, and that changes everything. It changes a lot of things.
Yeah.
Well, tell me what was the moment like when you got that diagnosis?
How long do I have to live?
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'm sick. I have that word, cancer. Will I be able to see my son get married? Will I see my grandkids? But then when you go through it and you get over that hurdle, okay, because when you first get diagnosed, anyways, at least how I felt, Stephen, was you feel less, you feel like you're a burden, you feel like you let everybody down, especially your kids. Because the last thing you ever want to do as a parent is to hurt your kids, because they were worried, and you know, they're all off doing things and going to school. And
I would think the look in their eye would.
well, yeah, that's the scary part. Is like, okay, my dad's sick and he has stage 3 colon cancer, and how much longer is he going to be around? I mean, that's what they were thinking. I know that. But when I was going through it, and you know, people asked me that, I was like, do you look at things differently now than you did before you got sick? And I think what me getting sick, Stephen, allowed me to do was to reflect. I was very much at peace when I was going through my cancer. I've always told the most important people in my life, especially my wife and my kids, and we all have a circle, but I've always let those people know how I felt about them, how much I love them, to let them know that my life has been so complete with them in it. And it would kill me, no pun intended, it would kill me that you didn't know how I felt about you. And they all would say the same thing, stop it, nothing's gonna happen, nothing's gonna happen, but we're all day to day in the big picture. So that helped me get through. I was at peace that way. When I announced that I was cancer-free, I said that we did this because I really feel that we as a hockey society, with Eddie Olczyk being, you know, the poster child, with all the prayers and the well wishes, that helped.
It was interesting. I read in the book where you talked about how when you were done with chemo, you got rid of everything.
I did.
Like everything that.
A couple of big black hefty bags, and anything that associated, whether it was sweatsuits or blankets or pillows or clothes that I wore, I wanted to run away from it as far as I could and just get it in the garbage and not look back.
I know, like, one of the things you want to do is kind of get the message out to people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
get the message out to people, especially, you know, folks in my vintage. It's
Well, look, I mean, I've encouraged people to, if you're not feeling well, you have to raise your hand and say something. Don't put it off. If your doctors or the recommended age for getting a checkup or a colonoscopy, I would rather see you go through the tough weekend of prepping for a colonoscopy than having to go through 6 months of hell, right? Like, it really isn't. And there's peace of mind there, because if you look at the numbers are up dramatically for people in a certain demographic. And when I was 6, even, the recommended age, I believe in North America, was 50. It has now been lowered and recommended at 45. I know in the US, I don't know what the number is in Canada, but that's a 5-year difference, which is huge. So I would hope that somebody could hear my story and go, hey, look, like, this guy was in decent shape, no family history. All of a sudden, one day he wakes up and he can't go to the bathroom. And then next thing you know, he's having a 6-hour surgery, removing a tumor the size of his fist and removing 14 inches of his colon, and they're telling me he has cancer and he has 6 months of hell coming. I would hope that either A, inspires you to go get checked out, or B, scares you to death to go, hey, it can happen to anybody. And I have that platform. We have that platform to be able to, if there's somebody out there right now that can hear me or see me and go, you know what, I don't want to end up like that. I want to go get checked out. And like I said, you get peace of mind. And I've had thousands of people tell me that they've gone in and done what I've asked or recommended, is to go get checked out. I've had hockey players, and I'm not going to say their names, guys that played in my era, a couple of old goalies and a couple of old broadcasters, and they put it off, and they're 54, 55 years of age. But they felt inspired by doing it, and they're good, and that makes me feel good.
Glad you're feeling great, and you look like $1 million. And look, thanks for this, man. It was a great conversation.
I appreciate it, Stephen.
Really
Always good to see you.
Yeah, good seeing you.
And great sights here, huh?
Not bad, eh? Yeah, we like.
Hold on, I can hear him calling my name. I got to get out there.